Again, all my food warriors, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are making the most melt in your mouth, tender, slow roasted pork shoulder roast that you've ever had. We're going to be flavoring this with a lot of Mediterranean ingredients, a lot of Mediterranean flavors, but this is more about the technique than it is about the flavorings. So, welcome back. Second half of our weekend doubleheader. So we've got a beautiful 9-pound pork shoulder roast. This is a boneless pork shoulder roast. I had my butcher take the bone out of this, and all I did while I was waiting for my oven to come up to temp was just basically truss this. So a little bit of butcher's twine. I just wrapped this up. I want this to be a nice compact package so that when it is cooking, it's cooking uniformly, it's cooking quickly, it's cooking evenly. This is going to be in the oven for a total of 4 hours. We're going to cook this in two different stages. First stage is going to be right in a hot oven, 420 degrees for the first hour. We want this to get some color, some caramelization, start to get that fat rendering. And then we're going to cover this up with some parchment paper and some aluminum foil, and right back in the oven for another 3 hours at 325 degrees. So 425, 325, 425 for the first hour, 325 for the last 3 hours. We're then going to let this rest. It is going to be so tender, we're going to be able to flake this apart with a couple of forks. It's going to be that great. So we are going to be out this afternoon. This is one of those dishes that takes care of itself. We're going to be on the field this afternoon, so this is one of those things when we come back, dinner will be essentially done. We're just going to throw together a few quick sides, and we'll be ready to sit down as a family and have a proper dinner. So what we're going to do to start, I've got my mortar and pestle here. We're going to go old school today, going completely medieval. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off with some herbs. I went into the garden, got me some fresh herbs, started with some fresh sage. So all I'm going to do here is just pull these leaves off and get these into my bowl here. There we are. You know what? Anything like this woody end, I'm just going to throw it into the roasting pan. Absolutely no issue there. It'll impart some flavor and some aroma as it cooks. There we are. We'll throw this in here as well. Also have a nice sprig of beautiful fresh rosemary, and all I want to do is just pull the needles off and get all of those right, again, into my mortar and pestle. This guy here, we're just going to throw him into the roasting pan. Now what I want to do to start to break this down, I've got some nice coarse sea salt. So this is even more coarse than kosher salt. I want to give this, I'd say, a good 3 pinches of salt. There we are. Maybe a fourth one. There we are. And we're going to start to break this up. And I'm using that salt as an abrasive agent to start to break down all of these leaves. There we are. Oh, the smell. The oils in these leaves start to come out as soon as we start to bruise them and break them up. Absolutely phenomenal. So as this is starting to get broken up, we've got a few other things that we're going to be adding here. In my bowl here, I have 2 tablespoons of whole peppercorns. I've got 1 tablespoon of whole allspice berries. I've got 3 cloves and 3 juniper berries. And this is going to impart, again, a great deal of aromatic flavor into my dish here. So again, we're just going to put these in. We're going to start to break these down. And as these break down, again, these are going to be acting as a grinding agent in my bowl here. Oh, love that. I can hear those snapping and popping. Absolutely fantastic. There we are. So I'm going to add a couple more ingredients here as well. As this is starting to break down, I've got a few cloves of garlic. I have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cloves of garlic. We're just going to throw that in there as well. I have a chili pepper. I'm just going to snap this off. I don't want the stem. I just want my chili pepper in there. Let peppercorn pop out. There we are. And we're just going to break this up. You know what? I'm going to move this guy over because it's vibrating as the counter moves, and it's a little bit distracting. There we are. All we're doing here is making a very flavorful paste. This is what we call una pestata in Italian cooking, and this is just a real old school way of getting all of these flavors into our dish. And it's great if you've got frustration and some stress to work out. There we are. All right, so this is starting to break down. We are going to add a few other ingredients here. We've got lemon that I've washed very, very well, and all I want to do with this zester is get a few shards of that beautiful lemon zest right into our pistata. This is going to brighten up the flavor here as well. This beautiful fragrant lemon oil. It's just one of those ways of really brightening up and lifting up a meaty dish. And then what we're going to do here as well is we are going to squeeze this right into our mortar and pestle. We want to get some of that lemon juice in there as well. There we are. And we will just start to work that in. This will give a good bit of acidity, a nice bright note, and it'll help to cut some of the richness and the fattiness of the meat. The beauty of this cut of meat, pork shoulder, I love pork shoulder. Number one, it's a relatively inexpensive cut of meat, but cooked the right way, it's a part of the animal that does a fair bit of work, and so we need to cook this low and slow or in a moist medium to really get this to be tender and fall off the bone fantastic. So this is a great technique, a great preparation for this type of cut, and this will absolutely feed a crowd. So the beauty of this is we will have leftovers to eat throughout the week. For those of you who are a fan of this channel, we made our oven baked gnocchi last night. We have leftovers of that, and then this will give us, again, the opportunity to eat well throughout the week despite our busy schedule and not a lot of time to get dinner on the table. There we are. So now what we're going to add to this, a few final flavorings. We are going to add in a little bit of, this is English mustard. We want just that little bit of spiciness. So we're going to add in just one tablespoon here. There we are. And we're going to add in just a little bit of honey just to counteract some of the spiciness of that mustard and the acid in that lemon juice. There we are. So we'll make sure we get that off. There we are. Excellent. So we will continue to work this around. Now, in order to truly make this into a proper paste, this is starting to come together. We are going to add to this a little bit of olive oil. So we'll probably go with a good 5 or 6 tablespoons. There we are. And we have here a little bit of white vermouth. Now, why am I using white vermouth instead of white wine? Vermouth is essentially a wine-based spirit. It's a fortified wine, but it's also infused with herbs and botanicals. And that's exactly what we've done here in our pistata. We've got herbs and botanicals, and so we're just reinforcing that flavor profile with a product that's a little more akin to what we already have here in our pistata. So I'm just going to give this one final workaround. Oh, the smell coming off of this is absolutely fantastic. There we are. All right. So now we are just going to take our spoon here, work this off. We don't want to waste any of this at all. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to move my pork shoulder off to the side. We're going to get our roasting pan in here. What I have here is just a simple wire rack. I'm going to turn this upside down, and I'm going to put this right on top of my wire rack. I want the heat to be circulating all throughout to get underneath here as well. So I don't want this to stick to the bottom of my roasting pan. I want all of this just to be able to have the air circulate around it. This way it's going to cook evenly. As you can see with this cut of meat, it's got a lot of intermuscular fat, and this is exactly what we want. As that fat melts down and cooks over a long cooking time, it's going to melt and come out of the meat, but on its way out, it's going to kiss and keep everything moist, kiss all that meat around it and keep it moist on its way out. So we're going to take our our bowl here. This guy's a heavy guy, and we're just gonna get some of that right on our pork shoulder. And there's no other way to do it other than to just get our hands right in there. So I will put this guy off to the side for a sec, and we're just gonna get our hands right in there. Every nook and cranny. Make sure we get all of this pistata, this beautifully flavorful marinade, right into our meat. And then we're gonna turn this around. There we are. And we're gonna get the rest of this right on top. There we are. All right. And all we're gonna do here is, again, we're gonna make sure that we get all of this into every nook and cranny. There we are. So I'm gonna put this into the oven, uncovered for the first hour, 425 degrees. I will see you in an hour's time when it's time to get this guy covered up and put to bed for the next 3 hours. So I will see you 60 minutes time. All right, we have just come out of the oven. We have now turned our oven down to 325. So before we wrap this, just one quick tip, just before I was putting this away. When I truss my meat, I typically just take my twine and I put it into a little saucepan. This way, when I pull the end, this guy can turn in the saucepan, I get the end of my twine and it doesn't go all over the counter and usually fall all over the floor. So useful tip. If you're not doing that, you might want to consider it. So what we're going to do now to get this into the oven, we're going to get this covered. So oven has been turned down. I have a piece of parchment paper. All I'm going to do here, kind of crush this up and just wet it under some cold water. That's it. There we are. And now what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to drape it over our pork shoulder roast here. We want to make sure we have it completely covered as we put this to bed. Want to be careful as our roasting pan is still very, very hot. There we are. There we are. So now that we've got that, we're going to take our heavy duty aluminum foil and we're just going to get this thing tucked into bed nicely. There we are. The reason why I make this a little bit longer is so I can double up the edges, and that way when I crimp it around my pot, or my pan here rather, I'm not burning my fingers. There we are. There we are. So we've got this nicely wrapped up. This is now going to go in the oven, 325 degrees, 3 hours. So I will see you in 3 hours time. We are back. It has been 4 hours. Just pulled a roast pork out of the oven. Haven't touched it, haven't opened it, haven't unwrapped it. Just going to leave it there. It will stay plenty warm as it rests. And all we're going to do now is we're going to make our sides. So we are back from being on the field. Let me tell you, we are hot, we are hungry, and we are looking forward to this meal tonight. The whole house smells like beautifully roasted meat, and all of those flavorings, all of those seasoning, those herbs and spices that we put in along with it. The house smells absolutely glorious. And so we are going to get moving on our sides. We're going to start with, this is a little over 4 pounds of Yukon Gold potatoes. These have been fully washed. What we're going to do is we're going to cut these up, put them in a bowl. We're going to make 3 side dishes to go with our roast pork tonight. We're going to make some beautiful roast potatoes. We're going to make some beautiful pan-seared mushrooms, and we are going to be making some sauteed kale with a little bit of garlic, chilies, and lemon juice to go along with it, just to complement the flavors of our pork. So all we're going to do here with our potatoes, we're going to cut these up in and around the same size, and we are going to get these on a roasting tray in the oven, ready to go. So pretty rustic, pretty rough and ready. We're not, again, looking to make any restaurant food here tonight. This is home cooking. Our pork has been roasting low and slow. It's going to be beautifully tender. are certainly looking forward to sitting down to dinner this evening. There we are. All we're going to season our potatoes with here are some rosemary, a little bit of thyme, and some garlic. And we are going to roast these with a couple of these big green chilies. These are, we call these in Italian, corna di capra. That's the horn of the sheep. So, yeah, kind of. So we got some. They're not overly spicy. They're kind of like a jalapeno in terms of heat. Some of them are not spicy at all, and some of them have a little bit of heat to them. But the flavor is fantastic. And so we're going to include these as we roast our potatoes here tonight. There we are. All right. So we are going to be roasting these in a 450 degree oven for about, I'd say 35 to 40 minutes. Just very, very simple, very, very rustic. And we'll put this guy right down the middle. There we are. Now to this, we're going to add some rosemary. I was out in the garden. These two nice big sprigs of rosemary. Just going to pull off all of the needles here. And you know what? We're going to throw that stem in there as well. There we are. And then what we're going to add to this is just a little bit of thyme. So I am going to keep a little bit of thyme for our mushrooms. There we are. And we're going to make sure we have some beautiful thyme sprigs for our roast potatoes here as well. There we are. Excellent. Throw that in there. Now what we will season this with, a little bit of salt and pepper. This is kosher salt. So I'm going to give this a couple of good pinches of kosher salt. And we have some freshly cracked black pepper here as well. A couple of good pinches there. And we are going to add a little bit of paprika, maybe a tablespoon or so of just sweet paprika, just for a little bit of color. There's not a whole lot of flavoring in paprika. It's pretty mild, but it does give our roasted potatoes a beautifully reddish hue. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cloves of garlic. All I'm going to do is crush these lightly, throw them in there. There we are. Paper and all we want is for the garlic to flavor the olive oil, and the olive oil will flavor the potatoes. There we are. So you notice as we crack this, the paper cracks open, the garlic clove splits open. We want all of that flavoring from the inside of the garlic to flavor our potatoes. So here we are. We're just going to give this a bit of olive oil, probably I'd say a good 9 or 10 tablespoons of olive oil. We're going to give this a quick toss, and we are going to throw this in our roasting tray. So I will just give this a quick toss. I will clean things up, and I will see you in about 2 minutes. All right, we are back. We've got our potatoes here on basically at one level on a roasting pan. We've got our chili peppers here. We're just going to scatter these all over the place, maybe get them coated in some of the olive oil at the bottom of our roasting tray. There we are. And we're just going to put these kind of everywhere. All right. And these will roast along with the potatoes. There we are. So, quick wash of the hands. Just going to move this guy over here. All right, we are back. So we've got all of our potatoes, our herbs, our garlic, everything in one layer on a roasting tray. I've taken our peppers here as well, kind of tossed them in a little bit of the oil just for a little bit of flavor, but we want to make sure we get a little bit of oil on these guys as well, just to make sure that they roast up nicely and they don't burn in the oven prematurely. So we are going to get this in the oven, 450 degrees, between 35 and 40 minutes. We're going to toss this about halfway through, and we will have some beautiful roast potatoes. So I will get this off to the oven. I will see you in 1 minute and we will start our mushrooms. All right, our potatoes are in the oven. We're now going to get started on our mushrooms. So I'm just going to get some heat under our pan here because we want this pan to be nice and hot. What I have here, this is a nice big plate of king oyster mushrooms. Now these guys they're big, they're meaty. As far as mushrooms go, when I'm doing pan-seared mushrooms, these are absolutely my favorite mushrooms. They're big, they're meaty, they're steaky. I want to cut these into kind of big pieces. So, maybe I'll cut this guy into 3 pieces, and that's it. What I want to make sure I have are these flat sides that are going to just sear off and caramelize beautifully in the pan. So if I have a small mushroom like this, I might just cut this guy in half. That's it. If I get a big guy like this, I might just cut him into 3 pieces, kind of skinny side, and then the bigger side I'll cut in half. So I just want to take care of these mushrooms here, make sure that we have kind of big pieces of mushroom. Looks good on a plate, looks very impressive, but these things taste absolutely fantastic. So we're just going to do away with these quickly while our pan is heating up. We're not quite there yet. There we are. And the only thing we're going to season these with, a little bit of garlic and a little bit of fresh thyme. That's it. The secret to making these mushrooms is we don't add salt right from the beginning. We let these sear off beautifully. If we add salt, it's going to pull the moisture or the water out of the mushrooms, and we don't want that. We want them to caramelize beautifully. We'll add salt at the end for seasoning. There we are. So we want to leave these guys big and chunky. They'll be instantly recognizable on the plate. And like I said, they make for a very impressive presentation and a great accompaniment to things like steak and roasted meat. There we are. You can find these in any good grocery store. These are organically grown, and they're just very, very, very consistent. We bought these time and time again, and they are just a good, remarkably consistent product. Oh, look at this big guy. Boom. Boom. There we are. All right. So, we can wait a little bit longer for that pan. There we are. All right. So these are going to cook down. We're not going to have this volume of mushrooms when we're done. This will cook down. Like I said, this is an absolutely great product. So this is starting to get hot. We'll get, there we are, maybe 7 or 8 tablespoons of olive oil in there. And we'll just let that heat through. And what we're going to start to do is get all of our mushrooms immediately in our pan. There we are. There we are. We can start to hear the sizzle. That's exactly what we want. And so we will cook these over high heat. I'd say for a good 15 to 20 minutes, turning every so often. There we are. And we will get all of these little pieces in the pan. There we are. A couple extra pieces here from our plate. We'll get that in there. While this is searing off, I have a bunch of garlic here. This is 7 cloves of garlic. We're not going to eat this. We're just going to use this to flavor the oil. And so all I'm going to do is just give this a little crush. There we are. And all we want to do is get this into the oil. It will flavor the oil, and the oil will flavor the mushrooms. So we just want to throw this all over and get this mixed in. There we are. We want to make sure our garlic gets down into the oil and flavors the oil as quickly as possible. Again, no salt. And what we're going to add to this is just a little bit of freshly cracked black pepper. So 1 good pinch. There we are. and I'm going to let this go. So like I said, this will take probably in the neighborhood of 15, maybe 20 minutes. I will see you in about 10 minutes or so, 10, 12 minutes, and we'll see what they're looking like at that time, at which point we'll add our fresh thyme in. So I will see you in about 15. All right, we are back. We are about at the 12-minute mark here. So as you can see, our mushrooms are cooking down beautifully. They are caramelizing. We just want to keep an eye on the garlic in the pan here as well, as we don't want any of that garlic to burn. And so what I want to do now is just take some of this fresh thyme that I picked earlier, and I just want to sprinkle this, there we go, into my mushrooms. Thyme and mushrooms are an absolutely classic combination. And there we are. And there we are. Fresh thyme from the garden. It's absolutely fantastic. So we're just going to strip a few sprigs here, throw it in there. There we are. All right. So we're just going to give these a quick toss. Leave these in the pan for probably another 2 or 3 minutes, just to develop some of the color a little bit more. And then right at the end, we're going to remove the garlic, and we are going to finish with a little bit of salt. And this is an absolutely fantastic side dish. So I will see you in about 3 minutes. All right, we are right about there with our mushrooms, so we are going to cut the heat. This is all the color that I want them to take on. Just going to give them a quick stir here. We have removed all of the garlic that was in the pan. Now these guys are beautifully meaty, and they have retained all of their moisture and therefore all of their flavor. So what we're going to do right now, just right now at the end, just a little pinch of salt. That's it. And we're going to give these guys one final toss. Oh, these look absolutely fantastic. However, the proof is in the eating. The texture, the flavor, just kissed with that garlic, kissed with that thyme, absolutely fantastic. So we're just going to leave this here. Now, I was out in the garden, just picked a whole whack of kale. This hasn't been washed yet, so what we're going to do is we're just going to get this thing off the stalk. You see this big woody stalk right here in the middle? We don't want to eat this. It's the only part that's really woody and unedible. What we want to do is just pull all of these leaves right off the stalk. So what I typically do is I turn it upside down, pinch the side, and pull. And the area where it dislodges from that stalk is really where the stalk is nice and tender. And so this we will discard, and this is our beautiful kale leaf. We will keep this to the side. We're going to put this all back in the colander, give it a good rinse under cold water, and then we're going to get this into a frying pan to saute quickly. So I will dispatch all of this kale. We're going to go through that one more time, just as a quick demo. So again, we're going to turn this upside down, pinch the end, and pull against the grain. Here we have our beautiful kale, and this stalk is what we're going to discard. So I will take care of all this. I will see you in 2 minutes. All right, home stretch. Our kale is now beautifully washed, beautifully rinsed out of the water, draining in a colander here. We're just going to get some heat under a brand new pan. There we are. And we are going to start things off with just a couple of cloves of garlic here. We're going to squash these down. There we are. And then all we're going to do is mince these up fine. There we are. All right, so we've got our garlic. We are ready to go. We're going to start with just a little bit of olive oil here in our pan. And we are going to start by getting our olive oil and our garlic mixed together here. So we want our garlic to slowly come up to temperature with the oil. There we are. And flavor our oil along the way. Meanwhile, we have a lemon here that we're going to add in right at the end. We're going to take our kale in little bunches here, and we are going to cut this up. So we obviously don't want a big leaf of kale like this on our plate, regardless of the fact that it is going to cook down and wilt down in the pan. We want to cut this down into manageable pieces here, which will make it much more of a pleasure to eat. There we are. There we are. Now, kale is a nutritional powerhouse. Lots of vitamins and minerals, lots of fiber, especially kale of this quality that has just been picked from the garden. It has been minutes since this plant was sitting in the dirt, and now some of the leaves have been picked and are going to be part of our dinner. And really, that's how we preserve as much of the nutrition as we can in the plant. There we are. We are. And here's our last bunch here. Anyway, so I can smell the garlic, which means we don't have much time before that garlic starts to burn, and so we are going to get all of this kale into our frying pan. Now the leaves still have a little bit of water on them, and so that is what is going to stop the frying and start the steaming. There we are. And we have a couple of little guys here in the colander. We're going to throw these guys in here as well. There we are. Alright, so we are just going to give this a quick toss. We're not going to salt and pepper it yet, but we are going to give this about 2 minutes as we saute this and as it does wilt down. And so I will see you in about 2 minutes time. Alright, we are back. As you can see, our kale has beautifully wilted down. We're not quite there yet, but we're going to get our lemon here, and we're going to squeeze this right through my fingers. I want to make sure that I catch any of the pits. Don't want those in my kale. There we are. We want to make sure we get all of that juice in there, and this will help the kale not just wilt down, but also will give a nice bright note to our kale. There we go. I think we got one seed in there, not a problem. We'll get the rest of these off our hands. We'll get that one guy out of the pool. There we are. And we will squeeze the second half of our lemon. There we are. If you can smell this, this smells absolutely phenomenal. This will certainly brighten this dish up. There we are. All right. Give our hands a quick wipe. And now we are almost there. We're just going to give our kale a quick stir. And we just want to evaporate that lemon juice at the bottom of our pan. Look at that, absolutely stellar. None of our garlic has taken on any color, which is exactly what we want. And we've got this beautiful, vibrant green kale. So now what we're going to do is give this just one final seasoning. So this is the time that we're going to add literally just a pinch of salt. There we are. And a pinch of freshly cracked black pepper. And we are done. This is absolutely my favorite kind of cooking. When we can get something from the garden to the table in a matter of minutes, we preserve the nutrition, we get the best quality, the best taste, and the most nutritional value as well. So I'm going to give this one quick taste. We're going to shove the heat off. There we are. Shut the heat down there. And let's see. There we are. Let's get the little pasta twirl going in there. Beautifully soft and tender, but just a hint of that little crunch. You know it's beautifully fresh. You know it's just off the plant. Love it. So now we're going to give this a quick wipe down. We're going to get our roast out of the roasting pan, and we're going right to the plate. So I will see you in 1 minute. All right, we are going right to the plate. Got a bunch of hungry faces behind the camera here staring at me, asking me when we're going to eat. And so we're going right to the plate with our creation here. We're going to get right into, let's see what this looks like. Look at that. Look at that. All right, we're going to get this all right onto our cutting board here. We're going to use these. There we are. These strings. We are going to cut these little pieces of butcher's twine right off our roast here. There we are. Look at that. We've got 3 pieces going the other way. We will cut those off as well. Look at that. Now I have made a beautiful lamb shoulder and leg of lamb in this exact same manner, where I bought a whole, like a half a lamb, and I cooked the shoulder quarter and the hind leg quarter in this manner as well. It was so beautifully tender. Just put this, you know what? We'll put this right over here. And we've got one more piece of our butcher's twine right here. Now look. Look at that. Look at that. Now, we can try and carve this off, but this is so tender. Literally, we can just pull this off. We can flake this off. So, you know what? Let me get my fork here. Look at that. Look at that. I don't even need to cut it. I can just flake this off. Again, with a fork, with a couple of knives. Look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. We're going to give this a quick taste. Look at that. Just melt in your mouth. This technique never fails. Keep in mind, we're cooking here to tenderness, not to doneness. So we're not cooking this to a specific temperature, but we're using this moist medium to cook to a specific level of tenderness, which is exactly what we want. This is melt in your mouth. Look at that. Look at that. Just absolutely fall apart, tender, melt in your mouth. And so what we're going to do here, it's fantastic. We are going to get a little bit on the plate here. So look at that. And again, this is just beautifully tender, melt in your mouth pork shoulder, cooked low and slow with some fantastic herbs picked right from the garden, and some beautiful Mediterranean flavors. Look at that. Look at that. To this, we're going to add a couple of our beautifully roasted potatoes. Come on. Come on. Look at that. There we are. We are going to get, you know what? We'll get one of our roasted peppers on here as well. We'll get a little bit of our, there we are, our beautifully sauteed kale. And last but not least, we will get a few of these beautiful hand-seared mushrooms. Now, come on. Come on. You know what? I'm going to move this guy out of the way so I can dive right in. However, before I do, I need a little fork and a knife here. And now we're going to get right in there. Look at this beautiful roast pork. Just fall apart, melt in your mouth. We've got beautiful roast potato here with a little bit of our roasted pepper. Beautifully crispy on the outside, beautifully soft and tender on the inside. We'll get a little earthy mushroom here. And a little bit of that beautiful kale. If there is a meal worth sitting down to commemorate the end of a weekend, this is it. So I do hope you try this. This will become one of your favorites, I have no doubt. Again, do like and subscribe if you find the content useful. Do share the content, as that is what this community is all about. And this is Coach Joe saying I will see you on the next one.